And meanwhile, you have Nancy Pelosi out in full-scale defense for the Biden administration, and it was all inevitable. Now, here's the thing. Either it was inevitable, in which case they should have made better plans, or it was not inevitable, in which case they got taken by surprise. They want to claim that it was both inevitable and also they made excellent plans, which begs the question, what's going on over there? If it was inevitable and you made plans, why do things suck so bad? So they're just going to try to ram through this cognitive dissonance, these mutually exclusive positions. Here's Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, saying this was a tragic situation. It was tragic. Well, how did that tragedy get started? And why is it tragic? And what I've been told it's a great success. So what is bad that is happening there? I don't know. I just don't know.
This is a tragic situation. I've been there 8 or 9 times. We want to make sure that there's a big bright light shining on Afghanistan if they wish to participate globally in any way.
Oh, so your threat is, and the Biden administration's threat is, that if the Taliban turn out to be bad, which, I mean, that would be weird if they turned out to be super bad. It would also be really weird if it ended up being a terror haven. Oh, wait, it already is. That would be strange. So we'll shine our big, bright light on there. And then if they do stuff we don't like, you know what we'll do? We'll send them mean letters. You know what we won't do? Put any boots on the ground ever again. You know what else we won't do? Anything useful. What we definitely will do is threaten them with economic sanctions. Because people who have been living in caves for the last 20 years or so, what they are most afraid of is losing the conveniences of daily life. If there's one group of people who are afraid of you cutting off their internet access, it is the Taliban. Those people cannot go without eBay. I mean, they need their OnlyFans, and they need it right the hell now. And if you cut that stuff off, they will immediately start talking about women and gender studies over at Afghan University. Okay, don't worry. The Democrats have placed their ire in all the right places. So you have Jen Psaki, who's very angry at Eric Prince for charging people to get out of the country. Meanwhile, the U.S. isn't getting people out of the country. At least not all of them. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi is very angry. Who is she angry at? She's angry because there were 2 Congress people, Peter Major from Michigan and Seth Moulton from Massachusetts, who went over and did an unplanned junket to Afghanistan to see what the situation is actually on the ground over there. Now, they did it with a minimum footprint. They did not take seats away from people who needed to leave the country. And they came back with some pretty valuable information because we are being lied to day by day by the Biden administration. So it's pretty, I mean, you have Congress people do this sort of stuff all the time, right? Congress has an oversight function of the executive branch. You have Congress people who routinely travel places to make sure that things are this is why you have Congress people travel down to the border, for example. It's why you have Congress people travel over to Europe to make sure that what we say is happening is actually happening at the White House level. Nancy Pelosi, however, is super mad, super angry at Seth Moulton and Peter Major for going over to Afghanistan. Why? Well, because they came back and they told the truth about what they saw, which is that Americans are going to be stuck there after August 31st. Here's Nancy Pelosi mustering all the ire she can in her frail brain in order to get mad at the people who are truly to blame. These 2 Congress people.
When did you learn that Congressman Moulton and Congressman Meyer had traveled to Afghanistan? And is that what prompted your letter instructing members not to travel to the region?
It's not just about them going to Afghanistan, but them going to the region, because there's a call on our resources diplomatically, militarily, and the rest in the region as well. So this is deadly serious. We do not want members to go.
It's deadly serious. We don't want members to go into war zones, and we certainly don't want them checking out what's happening over there. Flashback 2007, U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi's decision to defy the White House and meet Syrian President Bashar al-Assad steps up a tug of war between Democrats and President George W. Bush over foreign policy. Despite Bush's admonitions, the talks were counterproductive and sent mixed signals. Pelosi on Wednesday sat down with Assad, accused by Washington of backing terrorism and adding to Middle East instability. Newly empowered Democrats, already doing battle with Bush over who is really the decider on Iraq policy, are taking a more assertive role on foreign policy. So, Nancy Pelosi, you'll recall, actually went over to Syria and hung out with Bashar Assad, who was just preparing to kill, 500,000 Syrian civilians. And she did that without the permission of the White House. So she is a rich one to be talking about how bad it is for Congress people to descend to an evacuation area to survey the situation and then report back accurately to the American people. It's all misdirection. And here's the thing. The bottom line here is that in the end, the Biden administration knows this is a debacle. They are hoping you forget about it. In the same way that Americans forgot about Benghazi, In the same way that Americans apparently have now forgotten about 9/11, they're hoping that Americans just forget about this. That by the time we hit 2022, it won't matter anymore. You will be worried about your pocketbook. You will be worried about what's going on with COVID. You won't be worried anymore about the thousands of civilians trapped behind enemy lines in Kabul. It just won't be an issue for you. The only way, by the way, to make it a non-issue for you is to just ignore whatever happens over there. So if Americans start being tortured and killed, don't look for the Biden administration to do anything more than shoot a few missiles at camel asses, the same way that Bill Clinton did in the 1990s after the bombing of our embassies in Kenya and Tanzania led him to basically blow up a supposed chemical factory in Sudan. Look for the same sort of thing to happen from now on. Right? If Americans are mistreated, if things get really egregious in Afghanistan, even if pictures emerge of the Taliban humiliating Americans, don't look for Joe Biden to do anything there anymore. He has to justify the decision he is making right now. This is now the sunk cost. And Joe Biden is going to continue to engage in the sunk cost fallacy. Right? The sunk cost is getting out. That decision has to be made glorious by Joe Biden. The only way to make that decision glorious is to suggest that peace and at least stability now reign in Afghanistan and that there is no ongoing threat from Afghanistan. So the next few years are going to be about Joe Biden downplaying any threat from Afghanistan. They're going to be about Democrats pretending that this was a massively successful airlift. They're going to be about ignoring whatever comes next afterward or giving some mush mouth nonsense about how we are negotiating and we're going to get our people out eventually. And 5 years later, the people will still be there and they'll still be held hostage by the Taliban and we'll still be covertly giving aid to the Taliban. And they're hoping that you forget about all of this. They're hoping that you forget about the geopolitical consequences of handing over Afghanistan to the Taliban. They're hoping you don't notice that China feels emboldened and starts to go after Taiwan and starts to cut off shipping lanes in the South China Sea. They're hoping you don't notice that Russia is going to start getting pretty feisty with Latvia and Estonia. Because Americans don't care about foreign policy until they are forced to care about foreign policy. So the next couple of years, at a very minimum, are going to be about making you forget. It's all sleight of hand. They'll make you forget, and the press presumably will aid them in this task by moving on. All they have to do is delay. All they have to do in their own mind is get beyond August 31st. Because once they get past August 31st, once they get past September 11th, Americans will just go right back to sleep. So the only question is, will we? I think there's a 50-50 shot we do. Maybe a better than even shot that we do. Joe Biden is banking on the compliance and complacency of the American people. And if that bet is correct, frankly, we don't deserve to have the most powerful country on planet Earth. We really don't, because that takes some upkeep. Joe Biden doesn't want to do the upkeep. He just wants you to settle into the warm bath of civilizational decay and slit your own wrists. That is the goal here. So will we go along with it? We're going to find out in pretty short order, because that's the actual plan. Forget about the contingency plans. That's the actual big P plan from Joe Biden. I know what you're thinking. It's time to binge some more Ben Shapiro videos. Well, you are right. You should. But first, like and subscribe. Perfect. I'll see you in the next video.